Welcome to Moss Marketing Mondays, aka the M3 Podcast. Brought to you by Moss Marketing Group, bringing you everything marketing every Monday. Stay tuned for marketing tips and tricks you can use today. The M3 Podcast, marketing knowledge to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the M3 Podcast. This week, we're lucky enough to have Jordan Smith on, returning guest, Logan and Dre with the MMG crew. Thank you for being on this week, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, you're a local Kansas City business owner, and you run owner and founder of Trace.
Yes.
Let's tell people what Trace is.
Cool. Yeah, so Trace is predominantly 3D rendering. So I eventually want to get into the design world more, but we do singles like still image 3D renderings, animations, getting into the VR scope, a little bit of drafting, 3D floor plans, all that type of stuff. Anything related to architectural graphics.
All that really cool stuff out there.
Yeah.
What got you into doing, like, I feel like that is such a unique business that I don't know of another one around. Like, I couldn't give you a business name of someone else that does that.
Yeah, it's super niche. So
Yeah.
they don't really teach it in school, which is kind of why it's not that well known. But I had a crash course 2-week thing in college that showed me the programs I use, and I just kind of like saw what it was and took it by the horns and ran with it and learned it myself. And so I self-taught myself this thing kind of as almost like an art. I was doing it like you would sketching on the side, just for fun. And then I had a realtor friend out of Nashville that was like, hey, man, I'll pay you if you can do some of my houses I'm building. It's like, I didn't even think about this as a business. I was just doing it because it was cool. And so I was doing these renderings for him to sell houses before they were built for like $100 a pop, which is nothing. And that's how I got started.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And how long ago did you start this?
It was about 3 years.
About
It was
3 years?
Right when I graduated college.
So where did you go to college?
Drury University. It's a little liberal arts school in Springfield.
And another awesome fact is he's also from Kearney.
Yeah.
What?
Kearney representing on here. I mean,
It's a hot place for business.
I know, for real. I mean, we just keep turning them out. Logan's going to have to find us some representatives from the old Excelsior.
E-Town, yeah. We'll get someone on here one day.
Yeah, we'll get Ben on here.
Yeah.
So why?
You
I
go
was
for
gonna
it,
say
champ.
why do businesses see renderings being very beneficial for what they do?
It can go a lot of ways. So it depends on what you're doing it for. So if you're working with like a homeowner, it's just to visualize their design. Like it's hard for someone to read a 2D floor plan unless you have a construction or design background. So if you're building a house, you want to understand your layout, figure out what your kitchen and bathroom and bedroom and living room look like. The renderings show it. It's hard. It's easy to read a picture. It's hard to read a floor plan. So if you're a homeowner, it's to get your design figured out. If you're a builder, it's a little bit of both because you want to understand the design and show the client, but you also want to market it, right? So you can post these on social media or put them on a billboard or whatever and advertise the work you're doing. And then I work with a lot of like urban developers, even cities. Like the city of Kansas City wants to do this whole urban renewal project and revive a district of the city. You can do a rendering from 1,000 feet up and show what it's going to look like in 50 years, which is pretty cool.
It's insane.
That is crazy.
So it's anywhere from marketing to design development to real estate. You can sell a house before it's built. If you do good rendering, you're selling $1 million house, and they don't even have the framing done, which is pretty sweet.
You do this for renovations too?
Yeah, big time.
That's awesome.
And so that's cool
You
because you can show the before and after.
Right. You work with contractors, like getting it all set up? Nice.
Yeah, contractors, builders, interior designers, realtors, architects.
So can that actually help them figure out costs before everything even gets started?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because I can make it as accurate as they want it to be. So I can throw in like the specific marble, the specific backsplash, the wood tones, the color tones, the furniture, the lighting, and then they can look at that, figure out what they want, and then price it out from there.
Did you have to do any marketing for that, or was that just all connections based?
All connections. I'm marketing now because I have social media, so I post on like Instagram and Facebook, but I've never paid for marketing. I've just kind of all done it myself.
I feel like being in such a niche space, I feel like the people, when they start talking about something like that, you're in that kind of deal where one developer knows another developer.
Yes.
And he puts out this badass rendering of his whole new development. The other guy's like, who did that? And then it's like, it piggybacks so fast, and I feel like it snowballs.
Yeah, it's
really
very,
quickly.
very word of mouth.
Yeah.
And it's such a broad range of people who do these types of renderings. I mean, you have people from, a lot of it's foreign.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'd like India or China or Bangladesh or all these countries that there's kind of a communication gap. And so it's nice when they can call me and talk to me and walk me through changes and designs.
We run into a lot of that in the marketing space too.
Yes.
That there's a lot of it that's brokered out of India or some other country. And the people that are selling the marketing, the companies have no earthly idea how it even works. So it's just kind of something that I find is crazy, that it's a lot nicer when they get work with you one-on-one personally
Absolutely.
to get those things done and handled.
Yeah, people will pay a premium for a face.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. What made you want to start your own company rather than jumping into like a big firm or something?
Well, I've done both. So when I came out of college, I started at a commercial firm.
Okay.
And it got bought out and ended up being like a 200-person firm. And it's just, I don't know, it's just not my speed. I think I naturally have a little bit of a business mind. I didn't go to college for that. I went to college for architecture, and they don't emphasize the business side of it. It's all the design side.
Right.
And I think I discovered naturally that I want to be more involved in the business side, and I want to have a say in how you market it and how you finance it and what's the money behind this. How do you profit off of this? You know, I can design the coolest house in the world, but if no one's going to build it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I guess that entrepreneurial mindset just kind of took over.
Well, that's the same thing as when we create videography for individuals.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we can put out the coolest video ever, but if you don't know what to do with it, it could get 5 views, and then your client's going, "What happened?" You're like, "Well, we didn't put it in front of the right people."
Mm-hmm.
Same with your thing. It's like I can build out the coolest thing ever. If it's not in front of the correct buyer, it's not worth what it's on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I noticed that in school because we do these big architecture design projects, and we'd get in front of the critiques, right? And so the way these critiques are staged is you have to present your project to the professors, the students, and like architects in the community, so professionals in the field. And you got to sit up there and tell them why you designed what you did. So if I go up there and I say, "Yeah, I designed this, this modern building because I think it looks cool," I lost. No one's. It could be the coolest building in the world, and no one cares because I can't defend it. But if I go up there and say I picked this form and this balance and all this stuff because it meets the needs of the community and matches the context, then I sold it, even if my design's half as good as the guy next to me.
Yeah. You still had to sell.
It's all about selling.
It is.
And they don't stress that in the field.
Yeah. And that's where I think just in
Life
and everything. I mean, we talk about podcast after podcast after podcast, the importance of that somebody's always being sold at some point.
Oh, for sure.
And it happens in college. Professors look at students in the way that you sell them on who you are depends on a lot of times how they grade this stuff. I saw it in classes all the time just because they like students. Their grades tend to be better. And it was like, because there's some classes, there's not a set right or wrong answer. And when you're designing things,
it's all subjective.
It's very much subjective to what that professor thinks of it and what your classmates think of it. And if they hate you as a person, you can't sell anything. And then they're always like, everything that you put up there, they're like, well, I don't really give a shit what Jordan did.
Yeah, dude, I failed art class in high school, so that's just because the teacher hated me.
Yeah, that's the exact same thing. I'm going to back up a little bit.
Sure.
And kind of go into the backstory of you. We briefly touched on where you went to college and going to Kearney, but what's the whole story of kind of led up to this?
Yeah, so I grew up in Kearney my whole life. I was born in Oklahoma. My dad moved to Kearney in like 97, so I was like a year old. And I went all through school there, and then just kind of naturally fell into the design bracket. I was either going to be a cop or an architect. I'm not built to be a cop, so I fell into architecture and really loved design. I was drawing floor plans when I was like 9 years old, just because I thought it was cool.
Early age to start?
Very early age, yeah. I've been like, as soon as I could hold a pencil, I was drawing stuff out. And so I always loved it. And I went to school for it, fell in love with it even more, and I thought I wanted to do commercial. I really thought I did. I was like, that's where the money's at. This is the cool stuff. I want to do the skyscrapers and all the big apartments and all this stuff. So I immediately go into commercial. Not what I want at all. It's way too strict. There's a lot of rules, and it's just very, very rigid. It's meet this code, meet this budget, meet this deadline. and we want to make this an assembly line. You know, we want to be able to copy and paste apartment buildings all over the country and make as much money as possible and spend as little as possible, which is smart.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But I want to make it look cool and I want to be proud of it. There's almost like an ego pride aspect to design.
Did you play Minecraft growing up?
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, I took a drafting class in Kearney, and the way it was structured is he gave you your whole assignment at the beginning of the semester, and he's like, okay, here's the whole semester's worth of work. You can do it all now. You can do it all last minute, or you can spread it out. I don't care. As long as you have it by the end of the semester, you're good. So I knocked it out in 2 weeks and played Minecraft the rest of the semester. That's all I did.
That's
I
awesome.
loved it.
That's awesome.
But, you know, if you design something and you're not proud of it, then it kind of takes a toll on you.
I think that's where that
Yeah.
entrepreneurial side comes too.
Yes.
Is when you have that pride behind things, it holds so heavy on like everything that you do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That I am OCD on anything that is handed out, like Moss Marketing Group being held to just that highest standard.
Mm-hmm.
If that's a business card, if that's a folder that you get from us, anything with our logo on is going to be the nicest thing that you have gotten. But that's just a pride I have. And I think when you have that, it's really hard to work within a company if that company or that person that's above you doesn't have that same kind of mindset.
Absolutely. Yeah, because, I mean, I know the day I started looking for a new job was when one of the guys in my company said, you need to stop thinking like a designer and think like a developer. And I didn't say anything. He's a nice guy. You know, I have
Yeah.
nothing against the company. But he told me that, and in my head I'm thinking, I got to get out of here because I can't think like a developer. It's not what
Yeah.
I do. If my name's on it, I want to look at it. I want someone to look at that house or that building or whatever and be like, that's freaking sweet. Not, oh, I displaced the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know?
You drive past that house and you're like, yep, I built that one right there.
Exactly.
And that's why that one looks different than every other one in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I want to brag about it, not be ashamed of it.
So you said that you started when you were 9 on designing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So now what you do is more like high developed renderings. When did you get into the rendering side and all that?
That was in college.
So when you got into that, did you like get full projects right out the gate, or was it like?
It's gotten more developed with time. So
Yeah.
I started out doing these like super small, probably $300,000 homes in Nashville. And it was so what they do in Nashville is they have these real long, skinny lots. And because it's such a booming town, people buy those lots and then they subdivide them into like 4 houses. And so I was doing these lots for a realtor out of there. So he'd buy these lots and then I would do renderings of 4 houses for like $100 a pop. And then he'd market them and sell them before they were built. And so it was a really good kind of headway in to figure out what this residential world is like. And
This
how
dude
to-
was like, I found the guy I need.
Dude, he found the gold mine because now
Yeah.
I'm charging like $400 to $800 a pop, and he was getting them for $100. And because I just didn't know how to price it, it's such
Yeah.
a new thing. There's no rules to it, and so I went from that, and then I made a lot of contacts in Kansas City with different architects and different interior designers, and just kind of blew up. So I've done commercial projects all over the country, residential projects all over the country. I've been in like 18 states and DC so far.
Oh wow.
Just a few. Just a
Yeah.
few.
Yeah.
So, on the content side,
Mm-hmm.
we live in the kind of same space.
Yeah.
I feel
Sure.
like it's like the Wild West when it comes to pricing of content. And it's probably one of the hardest things for people across the whole entire space on how to sell content. Because there's people that sell $300 videos and there's people that sell $20,000 videos. And I feel like you probably deal with the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
that there's no really set number anywhere on what to charge. How have you kind of come into the value space and figured out what it cost?
It's been a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
I mean, I started so cheap that I started to raise rates when I realized I wanted to do it and grow it and kind of make this permanent. At first I thought I was like, I'll make a few $100 this summer, I'll buy a PlayStation or something. And then I'm like, nah, dude, I can make this a career if I really push it and I want this to grow. So I started raising my rates, and on the repeat clients, the guys I was doing work with from the start, I'm like, hey, I'll give you guys like a little bit of a discount, but I still got to raise it because you're taking up time. And then the new clients, I had like a set scale that I thought was competitive with the market. And so I would just do kind of like research on competitors. I'd look up these companies that are either local in the States or abroad and see what they're charging and just kind of try and match it. And then I'd market better. And that was kind of the goal. I'm like, well, I'll cold call people. I would call Star Homes or whatever, like big builder in Kansas City, and it's like, hey, do you guys need renderings? Because I can do them, and I can do it for this price. And that's how I got a lot of my work.
How many other companies are there in Kansas City?
There's a rendering wise, there's none.
None.
Yeah, it's not that. I think the closest rendering company that I know of by name is out of Houston.
Wow.
But a lot of those rendering companies do work like all over the country, correct?
Yeah, so that's kind of it's the cool and challenging thing about it is anyone can do it from their couch.
Yeah.
Like some guy in the middle of nowhere in Asia can buy a computer for $1,000 and do it from their living room, and they can be doing a project in Cleveland. It can be anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool, but it's also challenging because your competition is the world. I'm not competing against Kansas City, and I'm competing against everyone.
Have you hired anyone?
Not officially. So I will export some work to some guys abroad because I can get it for cheap. So
Fair enough.
but it's a good balance because like one of the guys I work with is out of India, and I can get him a really good price for what he's used to because the market's different over there, and over in his country, for example, people want to pay $200 for a rendering package that's like 10 images in a video. Here that would cost like $10,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely different pricing scale. So I can give him a good rate where he's making a few $1,000, which is a ton for him, and it gives me a good rate where I'm also still making money off of it. So it's a good balance. So, I think I've had people come up to me before on social media where some guy will message me that's abroad and be like, hey, I'll do your renderings for $50. I'm like, no, dude, that is slavery. That ain't right. I will pay you a fair price because that ain't right.
I feel like a lot of those people messaging out on Instagram too, though. Like, I mean, I've fallen for it like one time. So I use like Fiverr for some stuff on like audio, different things, like if we need like a professional voice and things like that. But I had a guy reach out on Instagram about doing like the cartoon character deals for like everyone.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, you got to pay half of it up front. I'm like, okay. And it was like a couple $100. I pay him half of it. And he sends me this deal. I swear to God, it looked like a 3-year-old made it with a crown. I was like, that's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. The guy's like, I need the other half of my payment. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
I look like a Simpsons character.
I was like, I literally looked down. I'm like, how does somebody, that looks nothing like it. It was like, it was so bad. I ended up just blocking him on there, but it was, yeah.
That's the danger of the online stuff, man, is
It
people
is.
can just steal content, claim it's theirs, and get payment. And
Well, the content on his page, phenomenal.
oh, I'm sure.
That dude didn't make any of that stuff.
No. I had someone do it to my page. Someone took a bunch of renderings off of my Instagram and then tried to claim it was theirs and started following people that I follow
Yeah.
to like pretend to be me or whatever, which doesn't work if you follow the same people.
Yeah.
But I'm like, dude, go ahead. Try and get your jobs and see what happens at the end.
I see it with other marketing companies around here on the content that they're posting. I'm like, not yours, not yours. Just saw that on Adobe stock yesterday.
Yeah.
Not yours, not yours. I'm like, most of these marketing companies don't even have a camera. Like, they do zero content. I don't know how someone like is going to jump into this space. That's like you jumping into renderings and saying, I've never made a rendering in my life. And I'm just going to steal all these guys' renderings and try to broker out some deals.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Well, I talked to an individual today just on video, and they're just like, would you come here and film? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, we want to make sure it's as personable as possible. And when that individual comes into your place, they've seen you before. They've seen them. They've seen them. They know exactly how everything's going to work. They're like, wow. I'm like, but that's become the new norm is people just pull that stock footage, and it's like, oh, cool. It looks like I'm going into a Chase Bank that's ginormous, and then you're going into like a small town grocery store.
Yeah.
And I'm like, those look nothing alike.
It's insane the number of companies that pay a social media management company that posts like a 3-word quote, a stock photo, and like a Happy Friday post every week.
Yeah. And they call themselves content creators.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I mean, technically,
yeah, technically.
it's kind of right.
But it's just like, I mean, this space has just became so, I don't know, I feel like flooded with
Noise.
noise.
Yeah.
A bunch of falsified noise.
Well, when you have an industry that has no like buy-in,
Yeah.
it's easy to do it. That's the difference. Like in my world, architecture, you need a 5-year degree. You got to get licensed through an accredited company. You got to, you have all these strict things. Like if I go out, I'm not licensed yet. So if I go out and call myself an architect, I can go to jail. But anyone can call themselves a 3D renderer. You know, you could buy a computer and you're a 3D renderer tomorrow.
Right.
There's no
Yeah.
rules.
And that's
That's the same thing with social media marketing.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
like we had a account that we're doing a bunch of video for and everything, and we bid out one video for them at $2,000. And they're like, well, we had somebody else come bid it at $300. I'm like, well, go for it. You can, they can have
we
it.
know how that goes.
Yeah, but it's like once you pay your $300 and you're not satisfied with their video, then that price is going to be higher next time.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what? I'm like, yeah, because it's going to, like, it's our time out again, and then I really just don't like having to have 2 meetings on this. And the cheapest route is not always the best route.
No.
And especially in content. Like, I was explaining to the people when we were with them and we're filming, they were like, wow, your guys' equipment looks expensive. I'm like, it definitely is. It's very expensive. But that's why the video space is, like, we have $100,000 worth of equipment when we go out and we're doing all this stuff, but that's why there's a premium price with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I'm rocking like an iPhone 11 showing up, I can do $200 videos.
Yeah,
like,
for
let's
sure.
go.
Overhead's not too high.
I just got to try to cover the gas to get there.
Make sure it doesn't look like you shot it on a potato.
Yeah. Wipe your camera off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dry off the cheeseburger you ate for lunch.
Yeah.
Fingerprints all over it.
But yeah, I think the content, I think the rendering, I feel like we're both in something that all of us are in, that there's zero regulations on it.
It's Wild West,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
It is.
Because you can make your own kind of destiny and legacy and footprint.
That's what I do like about it is there's a lot of people that reach out to us. They're like, we see these videos and we know that those are like Moss Marketing Group videos.
Yeah.
Well, we had someone that wanted something shared, and it's like, we would love to, like, great individual, everything like that, but it's like, when Dane shares something to Moss Marketing Group page, like, that's 100% of the time, that's most of our content or someone we work with or our friend or something like that, but it's like, when it's a video going out, everyone thinks like, hey, that company just built that.
Well, yeah, and people want us to share things to get to our reach of people.
Right.
So as we get bigger and bigger, our reach becomes wider and wider. And that's just why that's why people pay influencers to market stuff.
Mm-hmm.
To where they can get to their audience. So now we have people coming to us that want us to bid out a video, and then they're like, well, we can't afford that right now, so we found a cheaper option. And then I have a guy that texts me, he's like, hey, can you share this to all your stuff? I'm like, absolutely not. Like,
Yeah.
I do not want anyone out there to even maybe question that we did that video. Like, that doesn't hold to our standard. Like, that looks like a cheap video.
I'm going to do a rendering. You share it on Trace. They're going to be like, he was using a crown.
Yeah, it's crazy on what people think on that.
So I know, just going into the camera equipment for like what we do, does your software and stuff like that, because I know I've looked into some of that because I've played video games, stuff like that. I've seen a lot of the stuff they use. Does that software, stuff like that, change? Is that like an ever-changing thing, like monthly, yearly, or how do you stay competitive and being the best one in that space?
It's always changing. So it's computer driven. So anything with computers, after 2 years, you're out of date. So you're always buying new computers. You're always buying new software. Like the software I use it updates about every year, and that can be anywhere between $1,000 and $3,000 just in the software. If I buy a computer, that's $2,000. If I have to buy a new program that's new on the market and it's some cool thing that everyone wants to check out, that could be another few $100. So it is always changing, which is a difficult challenge, but that's why you pay premium.
I think that's something that makes a difference between successful companies in these highly skilled industries and unsuccessful companies is that they're willing to spend the money on that
Oh,
next
100%.
level of
Absolutely.
equipment.
I tell everyone here that the nicest, newest stuff that comes out all the time, if it makes our company better, if it turns out better content, if it makes their lives better with working on computers every day, go for it. We're getting it.
Self-driving car.
You're not getting it.
I'm getting mine tomorrow.
No, but it's like, it's one of those things that you have to keep up with that stuff. That when we started, we had some old shitty laptops that we were working on that were slow, and we didn't even realize how shitty they
Hey,
were.
that one's still over there. And it's the printer computer now.
Oh, there you go.
Just hooked right up.
That's what we started on. And I mean, we'd work from 8, 9 o'clock in the morning till 10, 11 o'clock at night on these laptops. And one day I go and I buy my first iMac, like 27-inch iMac loaded up with everything. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, and then everyone like tries it for like 10 minutes and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta go buy everybody iMac. So like, it was just such a change.
Depending on the industry you're in too, it comes to the point to where you can almost replace employees with that. We know a landscaping company that we've talked about to where it's just 2 guys and they don't hire employees. Whenever they need to hire an employee, they go buy another machine to help them do their work more efficiently.
And these dudes kill it.
Yeah.
But they work so efficiently with the right machinery all the time that they don't waste any time, and they work way smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
And they can do the same thing that a 10-man crew can do, that these people have no machines out there. These guys have like 4 or 5 machines that move all these rocks, do all this stuff way easier, save them all the time, save them the money, and you can pay those machines off. You can't pay employees off.
Yeah, it's true. That's a constant cost.
Yeah, that cost is there forever.
Except when people ask, they say they'll do it for $50.
Yeah, but you pay for what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you always got to put your hand on it. Always got to at least look at it, make sure it's good to go out.
We kind of talked about, or I heard you mention, you need a 5-year degree and you got to get licensed and everything to become an architect. I'm interested to hear what your stance is on college and degrees in general, or kind of in your field as well.
Sure. I mean, I think the college system is a mess, to be honest. So I think that there's a lot of industries that require degrees, or it's like an unsaid standard that you need a degree where you don't. And even with architecture, if you have a dream of being a residential designer and that's what you want to do, you want to do houses, you don't need a license for that. Don't waste your time getting $150,000 in student debt and going to an architecture school only to go into residential design where you didn't need it in the first place. I do think that it's crucial to get some architecture design experience so you can be a good architectural designer.
So if you weren't going to college, how would you get that?
See, that's the trick. I don't know. I think there's a huge gap because the problem with architecture in general is you have to go to like these elite schools. It's like lawyers.
Do they offer anything on that on like the LinkedIn Learning?
Not really.
Learning,
They'll have like
platforms.
they'll have like little design classes.
Yeah.
But to get like the caliber of education you get in a school system for architecture, it's really tricky. There's a huge gray area.
Yeah.
Because they don't have like a community college version of it. They don't usually even have like a lot of state school versions of it. It's like you have to go to this architecture school to get this 5-year degree, or you're not going to be taken seriously.
Is that kind of like when you're saying lawyer, like that's where whether you're going to like Harvard or you're going to like this state school, so like 2 completely different things.
It's
so
very similar. Like the requirements to get into a law school versus the requirements to take your architecture licensure test are very, very similar. But the pay scale is completely different. So that's where it's also off, is like you get out of architecture, you just got $150K in student loans. You've been in school for 5 years, you go into the field, they're going to offer you $45K a year. It sucks. You go to law school for 5 years, and then you go get into whatever law program. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know much about it. But you get your law degree, you go into a law school, then you graduate. You're probably getting like a $100K job right out of the gate.
like starting
You get
off, I
paid pretty
just had a
good.
law firm.
Yeah, so it's a completely like off-kilter skill with architecture, and it's a hard industry.
On the college part, one of my big deals that I look at, and I know it's very like I see it a lot in our space. An architect that went to architectural school 10 years ago, I feel like the programs and everything that are running now probably have surpassed everything that they did 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
So that's where I see that there's like that person that went 10 years ago is probably still paying on student loans from 10 years ago. And what they learned then isn't even relevant now.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point, especially when it's technology-based.
Yeah. So in the technology-based space, I have spoke with people that went to college for marketing and are so uneducated in the marketing space. I don't have a marketing degree.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a geology degree. Like, is completely irrelevant to what we do, but it's like we study this stuff every single day. We take an hour out of every day that everyone at this company sits down to train more, to make sure that we're as up to date on everything that we're doing. But the market 6 months ago was so different than today.
Yeah.
Like, doing this for 2 years. I mean, in 24 months, it's been a whirlwind change.
Well, I think 8 months ago, it completely flip-flopped where it's like you could have been having super good success in what you're doing. 8 months ago, Apple changed.
Yeah,
and
the
just-
iOS, like,
Just with Apple changing, you just changed marketing for 90% of your consumers.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it's like, pivot, what are we going to do?
but college didn't teach you what to do there.
That's where the entrepreneurial mindset comes in, and being a business owner and a leader, knowing how to continue that education and learning. Like, I'm sure that there's stuff that you do on a monthly, annually basis to continue to learn and develop your skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's vital that you take under your own belt to go continue your education by yourself and take that initiative, because if you don't, you're going to fall behind. And one cool thing about architecture is if you are licensed, they have a requirement to maintain your licensure that you go get continuing education through programs that are certified by the national organizations. Like, I have to go to if I was licensed, which I'm not, but if I was, I would have to go to like the AIA convention every year and go to all these setting like classes and stuff basically. And
So
learn
how
about what's
legit
real.
is their like continuing education?
It's actually really good.
It is?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I do think I have a lot of issues with the architecture licensing setup, but as far as the continuing education aspect, I think they really do have a good program for it.
So I know a lot of spaces. Like,
Different than real estate.
yeah, I know like real estate has like continuing education and stuff like that. I know like a lot of that stuff is a joke. Like they go sit and like have lunch and hang out, and then somebody like stands in the corner and talks to themselves.
8 hours in a classroom.
Yeah.
Here's your certificate. You passed.
You passed.
Move on down the road.
The cool thing about the architecture stuff, like the AAA conventions, you get to pick and choose what you see. So
Dre
if
also
there's-
goes to AA conventions.
I probably should.
That's messed up, dude.
No offense to anybody that goes to AA.
But like you get to pick and choose your interests. So,
Yeah.
if you're a landscape architect and you want to learn about geography and terrain and stuff, they'll have classes tailored to that. If you're a commercial architect and you work in an urban setting, they have classes for that. If you're a suburban architect, they have classes for that.
So when you go to those classes and stuff, like you say you're going for landscaping, you pick out landscaping architect, and then you're certified all throughout it, or is it just specifically in that field?
Are there specializations?
There are, and I don't know a whole lot about it because I just went for generic architecture, but there are, like when you're in college, you can major in landscape architecture or interior architecture, or like all these different fields. And I think it's a separate licensing process.
That's what I was gonna say. So if I was licensed in landscaping and then I wanted to go into commercial, I wouldn't be able to.
I think it's different, but see, I'm not 100% sure on that because I've never really looked into it.
Is it mainly for safety reasons?
That's a big part of it is
Yeah.
liability.
Okay.
And I think that's why they've gotten so strict over the years, is because there's been so many incidents of people not knowing what they're doing, and they design a big building and people die, right? So it makes sense why they have strict standards, but I think a lot of it is also driven by the cost.
Yeah.
Because the national organization wants their money.
Yeah.
Everyone has to have the cut of the pie.
Kind of like the HOA.
Yeah, it's like AIA is the HOA of the architecture world.
Right.
Which I hope that they need to have that standard for building buildings and things
They
like
do.
No,
that.
they definitely do.
There
Yeah.
needs to be some standard, because otherwise you're going to have a lot of accidents.
Which do I think that they need to have some like crazy standard for people designing landscape beds? Probably not. If the water doesn't run right and your flowers and your trees die, it is what it is. Like,
But
You'd
that
be
also,
surprised.
I was gonna say that saves costs on product, whether you're designing irrigation systems, stuff like that. Like that can save a lot of money in the long run.
Well,
If you're putting it in thousands of houses monthly, you just saved yourself $1 million a month just by shaving off like 15 foot of plastic.
Right. And all those systems intertwine.
what are you talking about?
I'm saying like when you're designing it, like depending on where you're putting stuff in.
Like if you build an inefficient system, you have more material costs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
That's true.
Dane.
Yeah.
But there's also like
Talking about saving millions of dollars.
No,
they got to be putting up some serious.
I just laughed because you go super analytical into the numbers again, like the lemonade stand last week.
He was trying to figure it
I
out.
need
Like,
y'all's negativity right
an
now.
individual like glass of what it was made.
Down
I'm like,
to the glass.
I'm like, just brought it up.
Then Dane's over here trying to do numbers in his head. He's like,
Oh, I drank too much.
hit the buffer symbol.
Yeah. I'm boofering.
someone's listening to the podcast in their car. They're like, did it stop playing?
I know that it takes crazy skill to do what you do. Do you think that that skill is teachable to people? Or do you think it's something that is like, you have to have that creative, there's something in people's head that makes it to where they can like create things and have an eye for it? Same thing why there's like really good photographers out there, videographers, things like that. They can just picture it. Do you think that is something that you have to have that it factor for creative? Or do you think you can teach the skill for what you do?
I think it's both. I think if you have that eye, you're going to do so much better. And it's going to be so much easier for you to like get a handle on what you're doing. But I have friends who lead classes on the programs I use, and they run rendering classes and teach people how to do it. And results are actually super, super impressive. I mean, you can, if someone has the want to get into it, you can do it without a college degree, you could take YouTube school, man. I mean, if someone wanted to get into rendering and you had the computer that could do it and you had the money to buy the program, you could watch YouTube videos and you could learn so much stuff.
YouTube's a pretty beneficial space out there in the world.
Absolutely.
Second biggest search engine in the world.
It's crazy how many times we've been in places like, can you guys do this? I'm like, yep, 100%. And then we like walk out and Trail look at me. He's like, we haven't done that. I'm like, oh, we're going to learn how to do it today.
Oh, yeah. That's how I started all my stuff. I mean, I have countless hours on YouTube just figuring out how to do different shortcuts and keys on these programs.
Yeah.
What Dane said. Well, we'd tell him, I'm like, you know what, we can figure that out, and I'll give you a call tonight. We come home, there's a good portion of us all on YouTube, Googling, going deep diving into websites, stuff, and we're like, calling back, like, yeah, when would you like it? As one individual's already working on it. It's
right.
like, hopefully they say yes and they need it soon. But I think that's what separates something where you're willing to put yourself on the line to get to that next level. I think a lot of companies fail because they're not willing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can have the most talented group of people, but if they're not willing to work at it, it doesn't matter. One of my favorite quotes is kind of like what you said, that anyone can do it if they're willing to work hard enough, is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah.
And that's true for anything.
Yeah, that's very true.
I've sat in meetings with other marketing companies, and I will say that when I'm like talking to those people, I have a very, very high level of confidence of what we do. And I don't want to say it almost sometimes like comes off as like cockiness, but it's like I am so confident with the team that's around me that there's nothing that we can't do. And I sat with a company and they're like, well, we were just thinking about getting into doing everything you guys are doing. I'm like, don't even try.
It definitely makes for a few awkward conversations.
And
and a lot of awkward silence.
No,
and they like kind of look at me and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you won't compete. And they're like, and they like look super shocked. I'm like, I promise you, you will not outwork the team that's around me. And they, a lot of times, are almost like stumped. And I'm like, I have the hardest working group of people around me. I go, that is how I have hired every single person within Moss Marketing Group, is based off of work ethic. I go, because of that, that's why we can do anything we want at any given point in time, because of who's around us. And most of the time they're just like, well, we have a pretty hard working team too. I'm like, they're back.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah. I'm like, okay. I'm like, but I don't know. I think the hard work thing is huge. And
Absolutely.
I feel like that's way more than any
I
time.
think that's no matter what space you're in. With just since you've been in your industry, you say, we did actually look at your website. You rebranded.
I did,
your
yeah.
company.
So I started with Mo Renders or Missouri Renders, and I did that for 2 years, and then I rebranded just because of location. I was limiting myself. You know, the name sounded cool to start, but then it's like, oh, this guy's just in Missouri. He doesn't know anything else. So I wanted a name that was more broad and could apply to anything. And I moved to Kansas, so it didn't really make sense.
Whoa, I don't know about that.
Now we got Kansas.
Cut it.
Podcast is over.
When you were going into that rebranding, was that something that, I know you're talking about Mo Renders. It does sound like you just do Missouri, and sounds like you're doing rural areas.
Yeah, exactly.
But going into that, was that something you thought a lot about? Was that an easy choice? And then how did it look like after you pushed out the rebranding?
The rebranding itself was an easy choice. I knew I needed to do it. As far as the name and direction, I spent weeks figuring it out. I had I write everything down. I have like the note taker and the list maker guy, and so I had this notepad, and I bet you I had 15 pages just filled with names and logo sketches, just over and over again all day. I'd think of something, or I'd see something on TV, and like, oh, that gives me an idea, and I'd sketch it down. So it took forever, but then I settled on something good. I had a good logo. I had a good like idea for what it means and stuff, and I went with that. And then when I rebranded it, I redid the website, redid the Instagram, and I think I had like a good 25-30% boost in people within like the first week.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Just from it being more neutral and not limiting myself in location. And I think having like a fresh logo just helps, regardless of what it is. I think if you have like a fresh look, it kind of gets attention.
So what does trace mean?
I just thought it was a cool architectural term. You know, you're tracing stuff all the time.
That is awesome.
The amount of times I just like, I lay out a floor plan and I put a piece of, we call it like vellum, which is this kind of like see-through paper that you roll out, and I sketch over it. I'm tracing all day. I trace all the time. Like, wow, it just makes perfect sense.
I'm amazed that name wasn't already taken.
Yeah, I mean, it was taken for a lot of other things.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I had, like, my website's tracekc.com
Gotcha.
because trace.com was taken by something else.
So you said
that
something
domain to
huge
come
there. Yeah. So you said something huge there that I kind of want to hit on.
Sure.
That brand and that image is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you get the right brand and logo, brand message out in front of people, they'll remember it more than, you know, if you just go kind of quick with it and don't put quality and passion into it. And that's huge with what we do. That's what we try to communicate to people.
I don't think people understand the importance of like brand recognition and branding, that we could sit here and I could put up 20 different logos here that have no words on them, and every single person that saw it would know who it is.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
I put up a gold M right here with arches. Every single person knows what it is.
Yep.
If I put up a couple red circles that make a big bullseye, everyone knows what it is. Like, but that's a brand. And I was talking to somebody my whole entire drive back today about that brand side of their company. That you have to brand yourself of, like, I am very particular about what we do and what goes out as actual post for us. So it's, if people look at like Moss Marketing Group stuff, we're never smiling. It's always very serious, which it's turned into like a thing.
There has been one photo that went out where everyone's smiling. And a lot of people, they're like, what's wrong?
But it like
like,
kind of turned into a thing that Logan was like, we're doing photos one day. He's like, can we take one that I can send my grandma because she says we never smile.
Okay. Hold on. I didn't ask that.
But it's like,
No, my grandparents did say something about it.
but it's funny how it like turned into a thing that like, I talk to people all the time, like, why don't you guys smile on your photos?
We're an angry individual group
I'm like,
of people.
guess what? I'm like, all these people remember our photos
That's right.
because
They're
of something
asking
so
questions about
simple. Like, people remember it, and it's, all of our photos are not like super vibrant colors. Like, that's what every other marketing company was doing.
Mm-hmm.
They try to put the flashiest, most rainbow colored stuff out there possible. And we're like, we're going to go with like darker colors. We're going to go with like very like, I don't know, neutral toned. Like, this is what we're going to do. And when I started, like from day one, I just had this vision in my head of what all of it looked like. Like photos of us, photos of like other companies, like everything we're going to do. And it was
Here's
just
your
like,
preset. These are the only colors you use.
but like I created these presets. I'm like, any photo that goes on anything is like running under these.
No, that's super important for any company, and that's what happens when you hire a professional or you are a professional company. You have your 4 like main brand colors. You have your brand fonts. You have your brand image that you stick to, and people know your stuff. It doesn't happen by chance. It's just not us saying like we're going to do that. That was strategically planned out. Our colors are strategically planned out. Same with our text, everything.
But we work with corporate companies, and it's funny when we start with a corporate company, we'll start with someone local, small, mom and pop like business, and they're shooting at us like 50 different ways every single day of what they want running. And it's like there's no rhyme or reason to any of it. And then we start with like a corporate company. They're like, we want this, this, and this. And they're like, you're getting an email from our account manager. It's going to have all the fonts that you can use. Here's the colors that you're allowed to use. Here's like, these logos can be used on these colors. These logos can be used on these colors. And it's like they break down everything to a T. And they're like, if you miss any of these guidelines, we're done. And I'm like, yes, sir. Like, we got it. Like,
Double and
it's just,
triple check it before it goes out.
Yeah, no
but
kidding.
it's just crazy on like how detailed they get to a national scale. That if you saw a Coca-Cola label come out that's completely wrong, someone's losing
So
their
you
job,
know it right away. Yeah.
and somebody's not going to have a job. If
Comes
some-
out, it's blue. Everyone's like, oh no.
Oh man.
yeah.
But that's why everyone in the world knows those companies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah, they
think
have an
that,
unmistakable identity.
yeah, and I think when you sometimes simplify down, like I didn't want Moss Marketing Group to be like a whole big huge logo, and I wanted it to be something that was very simple. Like the MMG was just like, and I've had people come to me that have companies that have never done anything like, well, your logo could be more complex and you could do more stuff with your logo. I'm like, no, it's very simple. I was like, I want just 3 letters that people know.
Yeah, like was it Target? The bullseye.
Yeah.
Very complex.
But like your logo is something that you see that and you know what it is.
Yeah.
Like after the first time I saw it, I didn't even know that was your company when you followed me on Instagram. And I was telling Drew, I'm like, dude, some person out here is making these houses and it is legit. And I think they're around here. And he's like, that's Jordan. We went to school with him. I was like, oh.
I follow a little closer than he does, but
But I saw it after the rebrand.
I was showing Dalton before you even got here. I'm like, dude, look at these. He's sitting there. He's like, is that a house? I'm like, it's actually a rendering. He's like, that looks like something out of a scary movie. I'm like, that's what I'm saying. It's legit.
Yeah, it's so real what you can do now that I feel like you're probably 2 to 3 years away from being able to like make stuff look 100% real.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it
don't
looks
know if
pretty
it's
real
not.
right now.
Even
You can do it
especially
now.
with VR.
Yeah.
And it's that uncanny valley, right? And so you see that a lot with VR and like 8K stuff and like all the new video game engines. And it's like, it's so real, it makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It like almost shouldn't be that real.
It makes
Yeah.
you nauseous.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
actually can.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, when you get on VR, they'll
Yeah.
ask if you want to unlock like full movement or something where like they try to keep it very like computer movement like.
Mm-hmm.
And when you unlock full movement, it states that like a lot of people get very nauseous with this.
Oh, yeah.
That it feels 100%.
Yeah. I don't really like roller coasters in real life. I definitely don't like them in VR.
Yeah. First time I put on VR goggles, it was like skydiving or some shit. I took them straight off. I'm like, no, I'm out. Like, I didn't like it.
I did a demo where you have to walk out on a plank.
I've
top of
seen
a
I've seen
skyscraper?
people do those.
No.
Oh my god.
It actually makes your stomach drop just from looking at it. It's freaky.
Seen people like fall over in their living room and
Yeah.
like knock their TV over.
I think it's crazy how people's like heads work that you can 100% know this isn't real. But like with what your vision is seeing, your mind can't separate that.
Yeah.
And no matter what, it's still like your body just naturally does not like
Shows you how
whatever.
powerful your eyes are, really.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And when you pair it with sound,
Game over.
Yeah.
And I was amazed at the sound on those. That you put on VR goggles that like you don't even see like audio out in or anything or a speaker on them. You're sitting here and you can be doing something and hear it 100% crystal clear, and somebody could be sitting over here and doesn't hear it at all.
yep.
I'm like, I don't even know how they work, but way over my head. But that, I think the VR space, I think we're kind of talking about where your industry is going. We're not in your industry, so I feel like we were talking about it and we have no earthly idea. Where do you see your industry going the next 3 to 5 years?
I mean, I'd say 3 to 5 years, I think the industry is going to be hyper VR based. I think you're going to see VR in spaces for commercial projects in terms of marketing and like product showcase. And I think in the architecture world, you're going to see people bringing clients to walk through their homes before they're built and really walk through it one-to-one in a space. I think that's all going to be the future. I also think that rendering itself, even still images, which have been around for years, I don't even think that's fully taken off. I mean, you still see a lot of building companies and design companies just doing floor plans, and then people see their house once it starts to be built and like, oh, I didn't realize the ceiling was that high or it was that short. And then they're disappointed in the house they just spent $900,000 on.
Yeah.
And so I think just the still images alone are going to take off, and it's going to be a standard.
I don't think a lot of developers, builders, a lot of people have seen the value in that. I think it's becoming more valued.
Yeah.
I think because buyers have gotten more protection now when they can go under contract and then they can back out of contracts. And there's a lot more like caveats in and out.
And I think too, with how like much the real estate market has been inflated and how much demand there is, they don't really have to do that right now.
Yeah.
But that's something that they're definitely going to have to do.
That is something that, like, that's probably my biggest disagreement with, like, everything that's taken place. Like, I'm one of those people that think even in the highest of highs, still do the things that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So-
completely agree.
So, really, really good real estate agents right now, the ones that are so busy when they get a listing and you normally don't have to, right now they don't have to do videos. They don't have to do Matterports. They don't have to do super high level photos. They don't have to do all these other things. And they come into the space now and they're like, well, we're just not going to do these because the house is going to sell anyways. Now you're discrediting what the value is that you're supposed to be bringing to your seller.
Right.
Do those things at the highest of highs, and your lows won't be lows like everyone else.
Yeah, when the market turns, they're going to look at you on a pedestal if you did it right when the market was high.
Exactly. And they're like, these people have always done the right thing. We see it with car dealerships that market goes crazy. They stop training salespeople. They wing off their high-paid salespeople. They go to these weak-ass salespeople. They stop doing high-level photos of cars. They back off all their marketing. They run to this like really lean, scared kind of space.
Yeah.
And then when the market shifts,
They got a lot full of cars.
they got a lot full of cars and they're not selling shit, and then they're backpedaling really fast.
Yep.
And it's like, I just feel like in this space, if I'm a developer, I'm going 10 times heavier because you have that extra money there.
And that's how it should be right now.
Exactly.
And you do see that with the right companies.
Yeah. I would say 25% of people do that. Just sit your ass down.
Get over here, dude.
I see that with like 25% of companies just across the board that think that way, that at the highest of highs, keep doing everything right. I look at it as like, if you have an influx of money, market that much more, you have that much more brand awareness to where if the market ever dips, you're in a better position.
Absolutely.
And then you're in a better position so when the market dips, you can double down again, then counteract that dip with marketing, all the things that you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, you build that legacy of good quality work.
Yeah.
And people keep coming back.
For sure. Oh, great to have you back, Dre.
Hey, thanks for having me today. No, all I was thinking was that when I was listening is
Where were you listening at?
I was listening right behind the camera right there. The entire time, actually, I didn't go anywhere. Just stepped out a frame. But
Okay.
the only thing I was thinking of was Tesla. When Tesla sat there, and that was the first electric company to come into the market, essentially. When they came in, I watched a deal on Elon Musk where he had $1 million left, and he had 2 companies, and he's either going to throw all of his money at both companies, or he's going to let one fail. And he sat there and he went broke. The individual went from having was very wealthy and drained himself of all of his money, and now he is one of the most wealthy individuals in America, if not the most.
I think he is he's tossing up.
Yeah,
with Bezos
that's what
over
it's.
here.
It's a tie between the two, but he
It
sits there.
plays a big factor on my life, which one's more which one's more richer, but
But in that instance, he went broke, but he's like, this will succeed. And he put 50 and 50. He's like, I'm going to give each of them the credit they deserve. And he doubled down. And now you see Tesla sales are higher than they have ever been. It doesn't help with gas prices, but me and Daniel, we went to, we drove through the Tesla lot last Friday here in Kansas City. You can't park. There are so many Teslas they have there that have already sold that you can't park anywhere.
Yep.
I'm like,
I believe it.
it's dumbfounding, but the way he sat there and when he had no
good to have
money,
you back, Logan.
Hey, thank you. You guys talking about Teslas?
when he had no money, he sat there and he pushed the rest of the money he had. He's like, it's either going to succeed or it's going to fail.
That's just the confidence
Talking
in
about
yourself as
Elon?
an entrepreneur. Like, if anything you're going to do is like, I would put up anything in my life, like dollars and cents wise I have, to a company that I've started. Like, and that's just when you have confidence in something like that, that as that scale side comes, money becomes, I wouldn't say more difficult. It just becomes playing a bigger game.
Right. You want to
Right.
invest it in something that's going to make you money,
Yeah.
not just blow it.
Yeah, but the whole game of it, which I didn't even realize it 2 years ago when I started, I was like, 6 months in, I was like, this business thing's easy. I was like, it's cake. I'm like,
Then taxes came around.
I was like,
Dude, don't get me started.
but then like taxes comes around, then all of a sudden it's like when things like come at you, they come at you like tenfold.
Yeah.
And when I'm paying like 2 of us, it's one thing, and then all of a sudden it's like paying 8 people,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like every 2 weeks those are coming, and it's like now all of a sudden you have 60 accounts that are you're paying ad spend at Facebook, things like that. Then you have like half your accounts are on like 30-day pay cycles. All of a sudden that money's going out so fast, and it's like the game that you're playing just becomes so big so fast
Mm-hmm.
that you're like
It's
trying
like,
to
you're,
keep.
it's like you're playing with $1 bills, and then you're playing with $100 bills,
Yeah.
and then you're going into a different realm. Like,
And then all of a sudden you're like in the high roller room trying to figure out how to play. You're like, whoa, I got here really fast. Like, what am I doing in here?
It's like when you talk about airplanes, there's a thing called the AVU, an aviation unit or something like that. Well, 1 is 1,000, and that's how they quote things. So when you're gonna get something fixed, it's like 3 AVU. That's $3,000.
Yeah, it's like as scalability comes up, just money becomes like thought of completely differently.
Mm-hmm.
That on a personal level, I still think of money the same. But as like a business level, there's like 2 different ways I look at money. If I look at like a pair of shoes that are $150, I'm like, well, I don't need a $150 pair of shoes. But then I look at something business wise, I'm like, well, it's only $6,000.
Right.
I'm like, but it's like thinking like that doesn't even sound like a lot. And it just, I don't know. I think there becomes like a spot where business and like personal life just get lost.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
and that shows your priorities in line, right? Because a lot of people look at things and be like, oh, it's a PS5 for $700. I want that. I'll buy it. And like, oh, I got to spend $200 to file my business license.
yeah.
But how much money is that PS5 going to make you versus the business license?
$0.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Invest
That's-
in the stuff that makes you money, then you can buy your PS5, dude.
That's what short-minded thinking gets you right there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've gotten to like a spot where anything that makes money, I have really no problem spending money on. Like, I will say the last like 4 weeks, I've put like a new pair of Hey Dudes in my Amazon cart. They're like $60. I never pull the trigger. I always take them back out. But then like 3 weeks ago, like a new like drone comes out that's like over $5,000. I'm like, yep, buy it. Don't even think twice about it. It was just like such an easy purchase.
Yeah.
But it's something that like goes to the company that makes our company better. Will that pair of Hey Dudes really make my life that much better? Nah, probably not. I'd probably survive without them. It's $60, but it's like it is what it is. But so you've came 3 years of doing this. What do you see projecting your future of everything that you're doing?
Future-wise, I'd like to make it a well-rounded design company. I mean, I want to do everything from client relations to design development, construction admin, really kind of make it a design build firm. The trick is finding the build part because I am no contractor by any means. So if I can build a team of people around me that can do the skills that I can't do and just kind of be able to delegate tasks and
So as a builder, is that someone that's like actually physically building the houses and everything?
right. So I can design it all day, and I know enough to put it on paper, but someone needs to go pour those foundations and swing those hammers, and that ain't me. I got soft hands. I'm not doing that. So someone's got to do that part. And if I can find the right connection, then I'll go full blower into it.
So are you wanting to have your hand in all that?
I would, yeah. I want to see it from start to end building these homes.
I think that'd be pretty
would you
legit.
be
That would be
willing to
awesome.
go into residential and commercial?
For sure, yeah. I like commercial when you can be personal into it. I think I got my bad taste with commercial because I was doing cookie cutter apartment buildings, and there's no, like it doesn't scratch the design itch, right? And so I'm just doing an assembly line to make the most money for a developer that I don't even see every day. Whereas in residential, you get that instant satisfaction. You talk to the client directly, and when you build a kick-ass house, you talk to the people that live in it, and if they love it, then you get to see that they love it. So it's cool because you get that instant satisfaction. And so like small commercial projects, you get kind of the same thing, which I like. I work on a lot of small commercial buildings around town for just like individuals, and I'm not working for like Coca-Cola. I'm working for like Bill and Jim's car shop, you know? So like it's all about the amount of involvement I have in the project.
That's really cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what, because I was thinking on, when you say you were in commercial, was that like luxury, top luxury, like apartment complexes or top, I don't want to say skyscrapers, but
No
in
skyscrapers.
in that
Just
instance of like large buildings, or was it just like the base, like, hey, here's a 3-level apartment, tell me how cheap we can do it?
Just like make the most money possible.
It was a little
Show
bit
me a
of both.
rectangle with doors.
We had kind of like a scaled system at my old job. So what we used to have is we did senior living, which is kind of its own category, and there's a huge need for it. So if you're looking to invest money, do
yeah.
it.
Yeah. I
Huge.
have a guy that right
Huge.
now that he's like, yeah, we just got an investor of like $9 billion on building senior living
Yeah.
Yeah.
in
And
just
he's
the
gonna
Midwest.
he's gonna double it,
The baby boomers are the largest generation, and they're about to die off.
and there's no
unfortunately.
housing for him.
I don't think there's any shortage of people, period. And guess what?
Yeah.
All people get old.
We live like 8 billion people or somewhere around there on this planet.
Yeah, if you got money to blow, invest in senior housing because it's gonna blow up. But we did that. We did market rate apartments, and that's where you had like the lower end, which you could even do like affordable housing and get HUD grants, and then you had the higher end where you're talking like the $2,800 a month apartments. So we did a lot of those, which are like the 3 or 4 story ones that they have in like every suburb and every big city, and then we did our one-off projects that were higher scale that would be urban. So one we did was in a big city out in the East Coast, and it was like a 14-story
Right.
middle of the city building that was a tear down and a rebuild, and it was a pretty cool big project. So I had my hands in a little bit of everything, but most of it was, let's build a template and reproduce this template.
Right. Like
in 15
investors that
locations.
don't really care about
Copy
like,
paste, copy paste,
Yeah.
copy paste.
And that's where my mind was just, I was so bored. I'd sit there at a computer and just click and just, doze off. And I had no pride in it. My parents would ask me about, oh, what are you doing at work? I'm like, oh, a bunch of stuff you wouldn't care about. Now, like, what
I'm
are you
not
doing
going to
at
bore
work?
you with it.
Right. And then they're like, what are you doing at work now? I'm like, you got to check out this house.
Yeah.
I put this same apartment complex in 12 states.
Super sweet.
So anyone that's watching the M3 podcast, we will be linking all of your stuff below.
Cool. All right.
So they can click, check out all that. Developers, anyone needing really any rendering can contact you, correct?
Yeah. Contact me. I'm busy, but I'll get you in.
Busy's always a good thing.
Good problem. to have.
Is there anything else that you want to tell anyone that about rendering, anything like that?
I'd say just pay attention who's doing your renderings.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really crucial that you know who you're getting them from, because you can find a good deal from someone you don't know, and then when the product comes, it's not going to be what you think.
Yeah.
So
Also, another question I always ask everyone that's on here, what would you tell other business owners if you were a business owner 5 years ago? What would you go back and tell yourself?
learn about taxes,
Yeah.
first of all. And second of all, just be affable. Learn how to talk to people, learn how to sell, learn how to be a good guy and a trustworthy guy. You build those relationships, and the work comes to you. You don't even have to try hard and pay for ads and stuff if you can talk to the right people.
Easy.
Yeah. Okay, Ricky.
You can edit that part out.
Yeah. No, but there are some companies, I mean, if you can build something that's such a niche down market, which a lot of people we work with are in very wide range markets.
Oh yeah, if I was in banking, I'd be screwed without marketing.
But it's like if you're competing against 50 other people in a 5-mile radius, what are you going to do to make sure people know that you're different than the next person?
Right.
Now, if I'm the only rendering company of Kansas City, I own my market.
Exactly.
I own 100% of market share.
Yeah, I'm in that weird niche where my competition's worldwide, but there's nothing local to compete with.
Yeah. So that's the ad side, everything like that. I'm very upfront about it. I mean, you're buying your market share.
Yeah.
Like whatever percent of market share you want, you can buy it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dollar and cents on that.
If I was an architecture firm, or when I become a design firm someday, there is no doubt in my mind I will be paying a lot of money for marketing because there's so much competition in Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I got. If anyone else got,
I think you
anything.
covered all the
Yeah.
bases I had.
I know. I think it is very, very, very intriguing of what you do, and I
Yeah.
think it's very cool on the the content side and just I think it's legit.
It's fun.
So, yeah.
And you're
Keep going.
passionate about it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's why it's going to be successful.
That's the biggest thing for it, because there's so much self-investment you have to have in rendering or design in general. And so having that passion for it will take you miles.
So all I'm going to say is once you become like crazy big and you have this whole firm where you design everything, you build them all, you do all this, you got to come back on again.
All right, deal.
All right. So
You said it here.
Yeah.
You heard it.
I'll see you in a few years.
Yeah. So we're going to keep plug everything below, links, everything for Jordan and Trace. And that is the M3 podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Key Ricky.
Thanks for listening to the M3 Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Want to learn more? Check us out on Instagram at Moss Marketing Group, on Facebook at Moss Marketing 58, or on our website at mossmarketinggroup.com.